I went to the Wharton School of Finance. I was a great student. I built a fortune because I do like a deal a second. I do many, many deals. Most of them work out. I'm a world-class business guy. I built an unbelievable company, very, very little debt, tremendous, some of the greatest assets in the world.
Hi again, everyone. It's 5 o'clock in New York. Donald Trump sold himself to his base of supporters on his so-called business genius, rallying support by selling people on his financial successes. He spoke all the time about the size of his wealth. He hosted a reality show that showed people vying to work with him and for him. He even wrote books about the subject. But now, those words are going to be used against him in court. New reporting reveals that prosecutors in the criminal hush money case out of New York plan to quote from those books in their arguments. From that new reporting quote, the Manhattan District Attorney's Office provided Trump's defense team with a list of past statements made by the former president, including 4 quotes from books published between 1987 and 2015, which they plan to introduce as evidence during the trial. According to the defense, some of Trump's quotes that prosecutors intend to highlight involve his approach to business, including his frugality and, quote, hands-on approach, while others focus on Trump's interactions with women, which is expected to be a central issue in the trial. Now, following yesterday's news out of the Supreme Court that it will consider Trump's immunity claim, the hush money case brought by Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg holds even more significance. It is increasingly likely that it will be the only criminal case of the ex-president to go to trial before the election in November. Back in April of last year, Alvin Bragg charged Donald Trump with 34 felony counts of falsifying business records to conceal damaging information ahead of the 2016 election. The charges hold penalties of up to 4 years in prison. Trump has pleaded not guilty to all 34. Bragg's case will be the first ever criminal trial of an ex-president, set to begin just under 1 month from today on March 25th. The wrongdoing by the ex-president, Bragg alleges, is much more than paying money so an adult film star will stay quiet about an alleged affair.
It is often shorthanded to hush money, as we've laid out in public court filings. The case is not, the core of it's not, money for sex. We would say it's about conspiring to corrupt a presidential election and then, lying in New York business records to cover it up. And so that's the heart of the case as we've laid out in court filings.
That's where we start the hour with some of our favorite legal experts and friends. MSNBC legal correspondent Lisa Rubin is back with us, plus back with us former Assistant U.S. Attorney Maya Wiley and MSNBC legal analyst, former top prosecutor of the Department of Justice, Andrew Weissmann is back with us. I was writing in my notes, what did SDNY do? Remind me, Andrew Weissmann, what SDNY did with this case. They also looked at the same evidence and facts.
So with respect to Michael Cohen, they actually brought the case and he pleaded guilty. I actually know a lot about that because that was referred to them by the Mueller investigation because it was, we had this narrow remit. And when this came up, we split off this part of the Michael Cohen case and they successfully brought it, but then they stopped. So that is where the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, to their credit, both to the DA Vance and now to DA Bragg, they both have been tenaciously pursuing this. I just wanted to say, some of your viewers might be saying, what are those quotes? What are those passages that Nicole read? What is it, frugality and sort of being hands-on? What does it have to do with this case? Why are they going to seek to read those passages? This is why. And they're really good lawyers on both sides in this case. What the prosecution is going to say is this isn't some executive. Donald Trump was not some senior executive who didn't know what was going on in the details. This wasn't some tiny bit of money that how do you expect a billionaire to keep track of this paltry sum of money that low-level people might be dealing with? He's not in the weeds. What they want to show is he is a hands-on boss, that he is frugal, he watches every dime. That's going to be the theory of their case. That's why these statements are going to be relevant to them. And, obviously that's those are bricks that you use to build a wall, as both Lisa and Maya know from trying cases. That's how you sort of go about it. And the defense will have to figure out how they're going to attack that. But that's the reason for why those statements are going to be something that the prosecution wants to introduce to help build their case.
I feel like this case has always suffered from the words porn star, sex, and hush money being as part of the searches. But Alvin Bragg is making clear in his comments that this is about election interference. And no doubt, I worked on campaigns. When you are keeping information quiet ahead of a date that happens to coincide with an election, that is election interference. What do you make of the larger themes in this trial?
I think that is right. It is important to remember, I think, two things. One, the information that the DA says they were trying to keep quiet was particularly sensitive because the Access Hollywood tape had just come out. And so if this was coming out around that same time, it would have really cemented people's view of Donald Trump. It would have made it much harder for him to say, if you remember, he said, that's not even my voice. That was one of his first claims. That wasn't even me on that. So we've come pretty far. Now he says it's me and who cares? Because I'm a misogynist, essentially. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's one. And the other is, I think, something that's notable to me is that you have this effort to catch and kill that involves the complicity of a media organization. Nicole, I think it's safe to say when you think about a media organization, you think about giving information to the public. You don't think about deliberately keeping information from the public on behalf of not just keeping it, but on behalf of a political candidate. Mm-hmm. And so that is what is charged here. And according to the indictment, the head of that media organization, the National Enquirer, is going to be one of the government's witnesses and is going to be called by the Manhattan District Attorney's Office to talk about that agreement, that complicity between Donald Trump in keeping this information from the electorate. Just to be clear, everything I'm saying is what I anticipate we will hear. It's obviously the state's burden to prove this case beyond a reasonable doubt.
When I went off on maternity leave, there was this March date looming. Oh, good thing you'll be back before the Chutkan trial starts. And now that I'm back, it looks like this could be the only trial that happens before Election Day in November. Alvin Bragg seems wired for that possibility.
He is wired for that possibility, and I think he's been telling all of us for a long time, don't discount this case. I'm not telling you that it is as grave as the federal cases here involving both willful retention of classified materials on one hand and a conspiracy to overthrow an election on the other. But nonetheless, it's serious. And instead of referring to this as the hush money case, perhaps it's time, Nicole, that we start referring to this as the state election interference trial, as contrasted with the federal election interference trial before Judge Chutkan. I think they are ready to go. I think that they have been preparing, including with pre-interviews of witnesses, for weeks, if not months. And based on the performance I saw of the prosecutors handling this case in the pretrial hearing on February 15th, I think we will be treated to some very good lawyering in this case. I share Andrew's opinion of the two lead defense attorneys representing President Trump. One is a former prosecutor. The other is a very well-regarded criminal defense attorney. Who are they? They are Todd Blanche, who used to be a Southern District of New York prosecutor. Maya and I both know. And Susan Nicholas, who is a very well-regarded criminal defense lawyer in town. I think you're going to see both sides really make an effort here and really be prepared for trial. But of course, Nicole, we can't ignore the fact that this trial and the Supreme Court review of the immunity case are going to coexist. And then we've also got these civil cases where judgment and post-judgment issues are going to collide with that calendar too. This case opens on March 25th. You know what else March 25th is? It's Donald Trump's deadline to post a bond in the New York Attorney General's civil fraud trial. And unless he gets some intervention from that appeals court, he's going to owe $454 million plus interest in the form of some kind of undertaking on the same day that jury selection begins in this state election interference case.
Having watched